So today we are going to discuss about tuple concepts in Python. Okay. Now last class we discussed about the list concepts in Python. Today we are going to discuss about the tuples in Python. So tuple is another popular data type in Python. Now tuple, how will you create a tuple? Tuples are comma separated values which are similar to list, which follows indexing method also. Okay, and the normal parenthesis is used to create a tuple. Hope it is understood. I'll repeat again. Tuple is a very popular data type in Python, where tuple is a collection of comma separated values. It is also a heterogeneous collection of data items, which is enclosed within normal parenthesis, and like list, it follows also the indexing mechanism. Okay, and repetition, you can repeat a tuple and so on, but how it is different from a list. So lists are mutable. That means once a list is created, you can add or delete elements from a list, but tuples are immutable. Okay, just a second. So please note down the tuple in Python, the definition you note down first, all of you. Please write it down. Tuples use parentheses, whereas lists use square brackets. Yeah, tuples use parentheses, whereas lists use square bracket. And the only difference between tuple and list is lists are mutable, whereas tuples are immutable. Once you create a tuple, you cannot modify it. So tuple objects are immutable, whereas lists are mutable. This is one of the major difference between tuple and list. Most of the things you will find common. Okay. And today we are going to discuss about the tuple methods also. So once the basic concepts of tuple is over, then we will start doing programming. Is it over? Make it fast. Who is Vikas? Switch on your video. Saket, Shashank Reddy, Maruti. Change to roll number followed by name. Shopna. Why your videos are off? Daily we need not tell you. Again and again the same thing. We are not here to see your background, your dress and all. We are here to see you that whether you are attentive in the class or not. Siddharth Reddy, Pranit, Sivamani Krishna, Shashi. Switch on your videos. Okay, have you completed writing the definition of tuple? Right. Now, first let us discuss about how to create a tuple. So, how to create a tuple? So, one is using the tuple method. This is a tuple method. Built-in method is tuple method is there. So, T1 is a tuple object you are creating by writing T1 is equal to tuple method you are using. Similarly, T2 is a way of creating a tuple. Just use the corresponding bracket. Normal brackets are used for creating a tuple. So, both are creating empty tuples. Okay, note it down. How to create empty tuples. So, by using either the tuple method, built-in tuple method, or by using the parenthesis, we can create an empty tuple. The way we have created the list, either using the list method or using the square bracket. Similarly, you can create a tuple either using tuple method or using the normal parenthesis. Completed writing? Whatever you are writing, at the end of the day, you need to practice and check it in your system. Those who are beginners, especially, you have to daily practice it and check it. Is it understood? So that's why outputs you should not write. You should write only the code, leave some space to write down the output. Okay, next we will go for different ways of tuple creation. How to do different ways? See, you know that tuples are comma separated values enclosed within parentheses. But suppose if I am writing T1 is a list of values, some strings, some numbers, anything I can take, heterogeneous collection of values. If I do not give any parenthesis also, by default, it is treated to be a tuple. Please remember this. Normal way, T2 I have created how? I have given the normal parenthesis. Within that, I have given a list of different types of data. Okay, some strings, some numbers, some floating point values. This is normal way. But whenever you do not give the parenthesis also, by default in Python, it treats the list of values to be a tuple, not a list. Is it understood? So T1 is a tuple. Without giving parenthesis, just comma separated values you can give. And T2 is normal way of creating tuple. Within parenthesis, a list of values are given. So both are the two different ways of tuple creation. So please remember here one point that by default, a list of comma separated values are treated to be a tuple, not a list. Hope I am clear. Have you completed writing T1 and T2? Headings also you write it down. Completed this? Please respond. Have you completed or not?
Completed.
Okay. Next, we will go for how to do concatenation of tuples. So in the above example, you can see T1 and T2 are two tuples I have created. If I want to concatenate or combine the two tuples, then plus operator is used. So here the like list plus operator is used for is used for concatenation or concatenating two tuples. So if you will run this, you can see here that the contents of the two tuples are written. Okay, so it is combined. So you can see the output of earlier Python programming 10, 20, 30 and so on. So if you want to see this way also, you can put it into the print statement you can write so that it will come in a single line. Okay, hope it is clear. So the contents of T1 is combined with the contents of T2. This is called concatenation of tuples. You can check it out here. Suppose repetition is allowed or not. Let us check it. Suppose I want to repeat a tuple 3 times. Then repetition, the star operator is used for repetition. So if you want to repeat a tuple multiple times, it is same as list. List elements can be repeated using star operator. List concatenation of two lists you can do using plus operator. Same thing applicable for tuples also. Do not write the outputs. You create tuples and you use it. Just write down the syntaxes. Hope it is clear. Okay, next we will go for how to do nesting of two tuples into a third tuple. Suppose T1 and T2 are already created tuples. So I want to do nesting. This is one simple way of doing nesting. T3 is equal to, within bracket, just write T1 comma T2. So nesting of tuples will be done. So if you want to print T3, so you can see that T1 is a nested tuple, T2 is a nested tuple inside T3. Okay, nesting of two tuples into third one you can do in the simple manner. The way you write the elements, in the similar way, comma separated tuples you can write within parentheses so that a nested tuple will be created. Up to this understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Shall I go down? Next is called repeating the content of tuple multiple times using repetition. Already I have told. So if you want to repeat the content of T1 that we have discussed, then we'll go for tuple slicing. Write down the heading tuple slicing. So this slicing is same as list. Okay. Now T5 is a tuple containing these are the values and print T5 of 1 colon. What will be the output? Please respond. 1 colon. What will be the output? 1 is the start value. Stop value is not given.
2270.
2270 it will be displayed. Very good. Colon 3 I have written. Start value is not given. Stop value is given as 3. That means by default, start value is 0. Index number 0. 10, 20, 30. Right? Double colon minus 1 is for reversing a tuple. It is same as list. Okay. Similarly, 1 colon 5, 0, double colon 2. That means stop value is not given means it will take all. But step value is given. So alternate elements will be printed. Right? Starting from 0. Similarly, this will print the even index element. This will print the odd index element because it starts from 1. Okay, these are the different ways of doing slicing. Please note down. You can write some more examples of slicing. You know already how to do slicing. So try different ways of doing slicing and also try with negative indexing also. Outputs you need not write, please write only. Some of the examples I have given, you try different ways of doing slicing. The more you will perfect in slicing, many of the programs will be solved easily through slicing. It is such a wonderful and very powerful mechanism in Python, which is not there in other programming languages. So try different variants of different ways of doing slicing. Okay, ma, over. Okay. Next, we will go for deleting a tuple. Now, for deleting a tuple, the simple del keyword is available. Del is a keyword. Okay, please remember. So, if you want to delete any tuple, you just give del followed by the name of the tuple. Okay, del keyword followed by del followed by tuple name. That particular tuple will be completely deleted. Now, if I will write, now after deleting tuple T4, if I'll write print, which type of error I should get? I have deleted tuple T4, okay, by writing del T4.
Type error.
What type of error I'll get? Please tell. T4 name doesn't exist.
Name error.
So what type of error I'll get? Name error. Please observe over here. That name doesn't exist no more. T4 name is deleted. So if you are trying to print that name, tuple object name, that name is not available. So you will get name error. The name T4 is not defined. Okay. Now you are aware of index error, key error, name error. Please be aware of all the types of category of errors in Python. Okay, Harshavardhan, understood? Feeling very sleepy in the morning time itself? A3. Okay, next we will go for how to convert a list into tuple. How to convert a list into tuple. See here, L1 is a list containing a set of values. Tuple method will convert a list into tuple. Okay, now tuple of L1. So this will be converting into a tuple now. Okay, understood? The bracket was earlier, it was square bracket, it was a list. Now it is changed to a tuple using the tuple method. So here the tuple method converts a list into tuple. It's very simple. Suppose a program is given to read a list of numbers and remaining part of the program is to get the output as a tuple. Then what you have to do? Take a list, no doubt, input as list. Then using tuple method, you convert into a tuple. Then work on the tuple. So it's very simple. Okay. Now, next concept is creating multiple tuples in a single line. Okay. Now you know that in Python, multiple variables we can read in a single line. Like that, multiple tuples also you can create in a single line. Suppose you see T6, T7, two different tuples I want to create in a single line. So this is the first tuple within parenthesis, comma, give a comma, and this is the content of the second tuple. And you print it. You will find that multiple tuples are created in a single line. Is it understood? Very simple. Left hand side multiple tuple variables, right hand side the contents separated by commas. So these are just concepts you remember. Then we'll apply it in our programming. Please remember, this concept looks very small, but once you understood and you have to remember how to apply, where to apply, then it will be easy to do complex problems. Okay, right. Now, this example you see, this is called concatenation of two tuples. Okay, see here, T5 is a tuple. T5 is a tuple containing a set of values. Now, to this tuple, if I want to add another value, so how can I add? T5 is the existing tuple plus within parentheses, I want to add another number to this. So 13, can you observe that this comma is very important here? Okay, comma distinguishes that it is a value in the tuple. So comma separated value it is. So you have to write a comma over here and then you are printing. Okay. Here what I am trying to do, let me put this into command line first. Now I'll run this. So can you see here, 13 is now added to the existing tuple. Is this clear? Okay. Now after this, what I am trying to do in the next statement, T5 of 0, that means at the 0th index, what is the value available? That is 1. That I am trying to replace it with a new value that is 25. So I should get error because tuples once created, it cannot be modified. See, using concatenation, this can be modified this way. You can add a value, but using indexing, if I'm trying to change a value, it is not allowing. So what type of error I should get? As you know that tuples are immutable. It has immutable property. So if you are trying to change the value, existing value 1, you want to replace with 25, it will not allow you. And what type of error I should expect? Hemadri? What type of error I should get if I'm trying to modify a value? What is the error type in Python I should get here? Unmute. They are not able to unmute?
Type error.
Type error. Is it clear? So let us run this and check. Very good. What you got? It is the type error. Understood all of you? Why you got type error? Because tuple object doesn't support the item assignment. You cannot change an element of the existing tuple. Once it is created, it is fixed. You cannot modify it, but in list you can modify it. So tuple objects are immutable. That's why you are getting the type error. That means this type means data type I am talking about. This data type doesn't have this facility to change the value. That's why it is related to data type error. Hope it is clear. Type means data type you have to understand. Everybody understood? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Understood, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Now we'll talk about the built-in tuple functions. Like in list, we have discussed about so many functions: append, insert, count, index, extend. So many functions we discussed in list. Like that, tuple is also having a number of built-in functions. So first function is called the length function. Finding the length of the tuple. This length function is also there in list also. So T1 is a tuple and length of T1 will give you the how many values, the count of the number of values that is available in this tuple. Write it down. Built-in tuple functions. Built-in tuple functions. Have you completed? Next, similarly, if you want to find the maximum minimum tuple element, then mean and max functions are there. Okay. Now look at this example. T1 is a set of integers, okay, numbers. But T2 I have taken a set of characters, right? Now, if I am finding maximum of T1, which value is the maximum among all this? 85, right? Maximum of T2 if I'll do, what should be my output? Anyone? In the characters, if I'm trying to find out the maximum value, then do you know about Ascii characters?
Yes.
Ascii characters, do you know?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So the small letter A is having Ascii value 97. Then followed by small b will be 98 and so on. So which character is having maximum value? That will be the output. So which character? K. Okay. Similarly, minimum value of T1 is 12 and minimum value in T2 is nothing but your A. A is 97, right? So whenever it is characters, so max and mean, you cannot simply apply anywhere. Okay. Whenever you are applying max and mean, it has some limitations. Either you take all integers or all float values. Otherwise, you take some characters like this. Then only you apply max and mean. But max, mean, length, these are all built-in functions. So for applying max and mean, you should not take heterogeneous collection of elements. One integer, one string, one boolean. You cannot take like this. Okay, understood? Right. Now, next we will go for how to count the occurrence of a particular element in a tuple. Have you written or shall I wait for some more time? Samim, have you written?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, can you just slow the upper part once?
Which part?
Just a second. The upper one.
Length of a
built-in
tuple.
Finding length. Yes. Okay, ma'am.
Just a len only. Okay. Count the occurrence of a particular element. So count method is there also in list. Do you know that? Count method, which will count how many times a particular element is available in a tuple. So T1 is a tuple here. And I'm finding T1 dot count method within bracket. I'm finding the occurrence of 52 in this tuple. 52 is present how many times in this tuple? So it will be giving me the count. How many times it is there? Once, twice and thrice. So it is giving me the count as 3. So count is a built-in method. So this count method is also there in list. So you can see many similarities are there with list. So except the mutable and immutable property. Okay, shall I go for next method? Next method is called printing the index number of an element in a tuple. Last class also I told you in list, if an element is present multiple times, it will always give you the index number of the first occurrence. So here, the 52's index 0, 1, 2, 3, it is available at third index. So if it is available multiple times also, it will always give you the first occurrence. It will always give you first occurrence. Okay. Now, if you want to find out the second occurrence, third occurrence, then you have to write down a loop and you have to take a variable and you have to update it. So for that, you have to write down logic again. That program also we will do if you want to find all the occurrences, if you want to print. But by default, index method will give you always the first occurrence. Clear? Have you completed up to this?
Yes, ma'am.
Next we will go for, there are two functions. One is called any and all. Okay, any and all, any, any and all. So this function takes one iterable. So tuple is an iterable object. It takes and it returns true. This functions will return true or false. If returns true, if the object is iterable, otherwise it returns false. but there is a difference between any method and all method. So this any method returns true if at least one item is iterable is true. Okay. It returns false if all the items are false or if an iterable is empty. Please try to understand. Then the all method returns true if all elements in an iterable are true, and it returns false if any element in the iterable is false. This is the definition. Please write down the theory part of any and all. Then we'll talk about examples. There is slight difference between any and all. Please write down the theory part. Try to understand. Any method returns true if at least one item is iterable. It returns false if either the list is empty or the iterable is if all the items are false. Okay. But all method returns true if all the elements in an iterable are true, or returns false if any element in an iterable is false. Who is Sri Charan Reddy, Sharath, Maruti Reddy, Trisha? Why Maruti Reddy, your videos are always off? Ma'am,
my video is on, ma'am.
Then I am simply telling. When I found that it is off, then only I will tell, right? Hemant Reddy, Sivamani Krishna. Surya Pranit. On change videos. Okay, completed theory part writing. Shall you go for example?
1 minute, ma'am.
1 minute.
Okay. Completed the theory part? Say yes or no. Vikas, have you completed? H8 Vikas?
Yes, ma'am.
Theory part is over. Okay, let us go to written value. You need not write. Let us see the example. Okay, look at here. T1 is a tuple containing some integers 10, 20, 30, some strings hello, hi, and false. False is a Boolean value, right? Now, if you will print any of T1, whether you will get true or false. If you will print all of T1, whether you will get true or false, because any and all will return always true or false based on the theory what you wrote. So any of T1 is going to return you true or false. Tell me. You have written theory, right? What you have written? Any method returns true if at least one of the iterable is true. So what I am going to get in the print statement, any of T1 and all of T1.
Any of T1 true.
Any of T1 will return you true or false?
True.
Any of T1 is going to return you true because one of the iterable is true, right? At least one of the iterable is true, except this false value. All are true values only. All are true values. False is computer understand false, Boolean value false as false only or 0 only. But remaining all iterables are true. Yes, that means using a for loop you can iterate. So iterables are true. But all what it says, all says that it trues if all the iterables are true. All the iterables are not true, right? One of the value is false over here. That's why all will give you false, but any will give you true. Is it understood? Is it understood what I am getting the output? One of the iterable is true. So these many iterables are true except one. Okay. Now let us go for the second example. Now, what the second example talks about? T2 is a tuple which consists of two things. 10 less than 5. 10 less than 5 is true or false?
False.
False. That means internally it computes this value is false. And 10 plus 5 it computes as 15. Is it understood? Now, if I am writing any of T2, what any says? If one of the iterable is true, then it is true. At least one is true. So 15 is true value, right? So it is going to return me true or false? Any?
True.
True.
True. But all is going to return me false because all should be true. Then only all will give you true. Understood? Now, if you run this, can you see here? First one is true, but the second one is false. Is this understood? Here I have directly taken false. Here I have taken one relational operator, which is internally evaluated as false. So this is another example. Let us go for third example. Look at here. T3. T3 contains two false values. T3 contains true false values. So any will return what? True or false? And all will return what?
Any return false.
Okay, all returns? All returns, read.
True.
All returns true. Why? All returns true.
Because
Both are false, right?
yeah.
If all are false, it is false only, right? So in this example, both are false. All are false means false only. If both are true, then all returns true. Is it understood? So in both the cases, it will return false only. Yes or no?
Yes.
Now in the fourth case, T4 is one true value, one false value. So what any will return, what all will return?
True. False.
True and
False.
false.
Yes. So true and false. Clear? So you can try with the different examples to understand any and all. Read the definition properly and then you apply over here. Please write down all these examples. Okay, completed students? Is it over or not? Make it fast.
Completed, ma'am.
Okay. Next function is called sorted function. Okay. Now in list, I told you about sort function, SORT, sort, to sort the elements in ascending order.
In order.
Here it is the function name is sorted. Okay. Now T1 is a list of values. If you will do it sorted, it will also give you that. So print sorted of T1. What it is giving you? What it is giving you? Can you observe the output over here? What it is giving you?
List.
It converts that into a list. Okay. But originally T1 is a tuple. But when sorted is applied, it converts that into a list. So do not confuse over here. Let me. So when sorted method is applied on a tuple, then it converts the tuple into a list. I will note it. I will write down here. Sorted method converts a tuple into a list. Please observe over here. So originally we have taken a list, but when we have applied sorted method, it converts that tuple into a list. Okay, have you noted? Next is called the finding the sum method. Sum of elements of a tuple. Sum method is there in list also. So to find the sum of the elements, so it simply adds all these elements and it gives you the sum. So mean, max, sum, these are all general methods in any data type. These are common methods, right? Now the last topic is tuple creation using a list, string and a dictionary. That means if you have a list, how to convert into a tuple. If you have a string, how to convert into a tuple. If you have dictionary also, you can convert into a tuple. So the tuple method will help you to create a tuple from all the other data types. So look at here. So T1 is a tuple. Using the tuple method, I can create an empty tuple, or this way also I can create. This I already told you in the beginning. Now you can see here, I have taken a string over here. I have taken a string over here, and the string can be converted into a tuple using the built-in tuple method. Here you can see that I have taken a list. List can be converted into a tuple using tuple method, and here I have taken a dictionary, key value pairs, and it can be converted into a tuple using the tuple method. So the input may be a string or a list or a dictionary. Using the built-in tuple method, it can be converted into a tuple. Okay, now let me run and show you. Let me remove all this so that you will not have confusion. Okay. Okay, no issues. So let me put this into comment line. So what you can see over here, that welcome students is a string that is converted into a tuple. So can you see here? Each character is a element in the tuple, including space. Welcome tarvata space undi kada. Welcome space students. Each character is a tuple element over here. Is it understood? Right. Yes or no?
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
can you
Yes,
see
ma'am.
over here what I am trying to do here? T1 is an empty tuple, right? T1 is an empty tuple. Then T1 I have given some values. Now what I am trying to do here in the next line, I am assigning the content of T3 into T1. That means I am assigning, T1 is having some values, right? Assigning the tuple, the values of tuple T3. T3 is the tuple recently created from a string into T1. So is it possible to do like this? Then what should be the output? Can you see over here that tuple assignment? I'm printing T1 over here. So tuple assignment is allowed. Tuple assignment is allowed. If you want, I'll remove this print statement also. Let me run. What I am doing here, T1 is already a tuple containing some values, but I'm assigning the tuple T3, the values of tuple T3 into tuple T1. Okay. And if I'm printing T1, you can see like this. Okay. Now, do you remember there is a method called ID method? Do you remember that method? ID of T1. ID of T2, for the timing, let me remove this T2 also. Okay. Now, let us run and see. What is the ID of? This is the unique identifier. When a tuple object is created, internally it assigns a unique identifier to that object. So what is that object? It's a big number, this number. Okay. Now you can see here, the T3 values are assigned to T1. Now after this, let us check the ID of T1 again. Will it be same or different? Can you see over here that these numbers are different? Why it is different? Because what is the basic property of a tuple? It is immutable. Once it is created, it cannot be modified. Yes or no? So it has created another object whose name is also T1. T3 lo unna values T1 ki copy chesaru. Yes or no? So it has created another tuple object whose name is T1. But internally it understands as a unique identifier. That means it has assigned a different number to T1. That means this T1 and this T1 both are different objects. Though the names are same, because computer never understands through its name. Computer understands through its identifier number. Is it? Yes or no? So do not confuse that. Yes, tuples can be assigned, no problem. One tuple you can assign to another tuple name. That means T3 lo emundi, ade T1 lo undi. Yes. Now let us try to print here T3 also. Will it be same or different? You can see that these two numbers are same. Why? These two numbers are same. Why it is same?
Because T1 equal to T3.
T1 equal to T3. Both are having same content. So it understands that you may give different names, but the values are same. That's why these numbers are same. But this T1 is different from this T1. Please remember this. Okay. Next we will talk about, you can create a tuple T4 from a list also. Okay. So if you run this, okay. So this 10, 20, 30, 40 is now converted into a tuple. Similarly, this is a dictionary, key value pair. Roll number is the key and this is the 501 is the value. Name is the key, Rama is the value. So this is when it is converted into tuple, only keys will be there in the tuple, not the values. Only keys will be there in the tuple. Is this clear? Okay. Now, what is the next example? You can see here T6. T6 is what? It is a list of dictionaries. Can you see the square bracket? It is a list of what? Each list is containing what? Each list is containing what? This is a dictionary. Roll number and name, Rama, up to this is the second dictionary, and so on. So this is called a list of dictionaries. Okay. Now that one I am converting into a tuple. So if I will print a T6, what I should get? What I will get? Print a T6 if I'll do. Can you see here? These two prints I will remove first. So what I am getting? This is simply converted into a tuple. Yes. The square bracket was list, right? So list to tuple it is converted. You understood this example? Earlier it was a list. Now using the tuple method, it is converted into a tuple. Inside this brackets, this dictionaries are not changed. These are treated as values. Okay. Hope it is clear. Okay. Already it is time. Next faculty might be waiting. Let me stop over here.
Yes.
So I'll take the attendance later or from the next faculty. So next faculty has joined. What is the next period?
Yes, ma'am. Sir came.
Sir came, right? Okay. I'll leave the class.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Vinay.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
Very good
sir.
morning.
Your host now.
Very good morning. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. So please all are open the videos.
Mute yourself, Vinay.
Oi. Okay, dear students, very happy to see you. So today we're going to discuss one of the important topic, that is a softening of water. It is one of the method to treatment of boiler feed water. So before going to discuss this softening of water, is a very, very important topic. So yesterday we have to recall what we have to discuss in yesterday. That is the potable water and the specification of potable water, right? And what are the steps is involved in the potable water also we discussed yesterday. So we know that. So what is a potable water? What is a potable water?
Drinkable water.
So which is drinkable water and which is the harmless water. So that is we are called as a potable water. Potable water, it should be have some specification. It's very, very important. What are the specifications? What are the specifications? Potable water specifications. It should be the pH
10.
7 to 8.
Sorry.
And it should be, you forget, it should be tasteless. It should be colorless.
Colorless.
Yeah, it should be terribility is a very less.
Free
And
from
TDS also
microorganism.
below 500 ppm. And it should be less and reduce the microorganism and free from microorganisms. So those water we are called as a potable water. That water only we are going to drinking. So normally there are some treatment of water is there. Normally we are using So in domestic way, simple techniques are we are using to softening the waters. So UV treatment or ion exchange method, these are the simple techniques to softening the water. But there are some huge method in the municipal water treatment is there. So that is a big, huge water when we are going to treat the water. There are big steps is there. That treatment of water, there is a 2 steps is mainly involved in the 2 steps. What are the steps? The removal of suspended matters. And the second one, the removal of microorganisms. It is also called as a disinfection. So removal of suspended matters based on the suspended particles, based on the impurities, we are going to, so removal procedures are different. For example, if a floating matter is there, leaves or weed, wood dries or plastic, this type of floating matters is present, then we are, what type of method we are using to remove that particles? So that is a screening method. That method is called as a screening method. We are followed the screening method to remove this type of floating matters. And the second one, suspended particles. If you present any suspended particles, clay, sand, this type of suspended particles. So what method we are using to remove that suspended particles? What method? Which method we are using? So sedimentation process. That method is sedimentation process. And if any fine suspended particle is present in the water, which method we are following to treat that water? Which method we are going to treat? So which method we are following to remove that particle, fine suspended particle? That is very good, very good. Coagulation process. Coagulation process is a one type of chemical process. We are using some coagulants. So then we are remove that type of fine suspended particle from the water. So, and another way, if any present in the microorganisms, we are also followed some techniques. So that method is a disinfection method. So we have some type of microorganism removing methods. What are that methods? What are that removing? So how we can remove the microorganisms based on the water treatment?
Boiling fish.
Yeah, that is the fundamental technique, fundamental method. So boiling method. Boiling method is only, it's not it's a simple technique. So at a high temperature, so microorganisms will kill very easily. So there is a huge methods is there. So very popular methods is there, especially in municipal water treatment. So we are using different techniques. What are the techniques? Bleaching powder method. We are using, so there people are using, so bleaching powder process. Bleaching powder process. What is a bleaching powder? What is the chemical formula of bleaching powder? Calcium oxychloride. Calcium oxychloride is the chemical formula of bleaching powder. What is the advantage of calcium oxychloride? Calcium oxychloride, it liberates the chlorine, and this chlorine when reacted with water, it forms hypochlorite. This hypochlorite having, so what is the possibility? It enhance the surface area and it generate the, is having some killing possibility to the pathogens. That is the advantage of hypochlorite. Hypochlorite having that capability to kill the bacteria. So that is the advantage of that. That's why we are using. So this is the bleaching powder treatment. So there is some disadvantages also there. So that's the reason we are followed another method, that is the chlorination process. Chlorination process also same method. So directly we are adding chlorine. So that is also called as a addition of chlorine method. So in addition of chlorine method also, it can generate the hypochlorous HOCl, hypochloric acid. This hypochloric acid also, it have the capability to kill the pathogens. That's the reason we are also followed that treatment, chlorination method. And there is some drawbacks is also there. If excess of chlorine acid is there, we have to the water having some order, so and the color also having, so there is some disadvantages also there. That's the reason we are also maintain the chlorine addition. So quantity of chlorine, how much quantity of chlorine we have to add that, so in the water treatment. So what is that method? That is a breakpoint chlorination method. Breakpoint chlorination method. So how much of amount is required to kill the pathogens, complete pathogens in the based on the water treatment, And there is another method also there, chloramine method. In the chloramine method, what is the formula of chloramine?
NH2Cl.
Very good, NH2Cl. This is a chloramine chemical formula. This is also a wonderful technique to remove the pathogens in the based on the water treatment. And another very popular method is also there to treat the pathogens. I mean, to remove the pathogens, I mean microorganisms. So what is that method?
Ozonolysis.
Ozonolysis process. So ozonolysis process is expensive technique. So that's the reason we are a domestic purpose only. We are following this ozonolysis process. Ozone to generate the nascent oxygen. This nascent oxygen to kill the bacteria, pathogens. That is the advantage of ozonolysis process. But it is very difficult to use, especially in municipal water treatment. So that's the reason, only domestic way, it is an expensive method. So these are the methods is involved in the treatment of water. So any municipal water treatment or normal water treatment or potable water treatment. These are the steps is involved in the water treatment. And the second one, in industrial purpose also, we have to maintain some techniques to treatment of water. That is the treatment of boiler feed water. When we are understanding this boiler feed water treatment, then we can understand, we can know that the softening techniques of water. So this session, we are going to discuss the treatment of boiler feed water. This is the one of the softening techniques of water. So in this technique, we know that boilers. So boilers is the closed vessel. So normally the industries, they are using these boilers. So for heat applications, we are following these boilers. We are using these boilers. So these boilers to generate the steam, this steam we are using different applications, heat applications. For example, power generation. These are the advantage of boiler. If you boilers, especially in industries, they are using more than pure water. That means distilled water they are used. Why they are going to use the distilled water to boiler? To avoid the hardness, to avoid the sludge and the scaling of that boiler. So that's the maintenance of boiler. There people are using, especially industries, people are using this type of, distilled water. So normally boiler feed water should correspond with the following composition. It should be need this type of composition to avoid corrosion. So what is the composition is need? The hardness, the water hardness, it should be below 0.2 ppm. It should be below 0.2 ppm. Then only that water is applicable to the boiler feed water. Then the caustic alkalinity, I mean the pH of the solution also, pH of the water also, it should be between 7 to 8. And that caustic alkalinity, it must be 0.15 ppm to 0.45 ppm. It should be alkalinity of the water. It should be the below that range, 0.15 ppm to 0.45 ppm. It should be free from dissolved gases, the carbon dioxide, oxygen, ammonia, this type of gases. It should be, removed. Which water doesn't have that type of gases. That gases, it should be. We have to use boiler feed water. If we have this oxygen and carbon dioxide to prevent it should be, maybe the boiler will undergoes to the corrosion. So, and normally these boilers are employed for the steam generation purpose. We know that. So in power plant, so boilers are the most important part, where water has a continuously heated and produce the steam. So there, what they're doing, so continuously the boilers they're using to generate the steam. So that's the reason the more and more water is removed from the steam, they're using the steam, the boiler water gets concentrated with the dissolved salts, progressively reaches the saturation point. What happened? So continuously they're using the water. So what happened? That hardness of water, it caused to the boiler, the scaling it can form to the, so in the boiler surface. So that's the reason, so that it can form the precipitated, that precipitated slowly settle down to the inner walls of the boiler plate. So that's the reason. So excess of impurities if present in the water, so the boiler feed water generally cause to the this type of problems. First one is priming and foaming problem, and second one is sludge and scales problem, and the third one is castic embrittlement problem and boiler corrosion. These are the main causes, main problems arising due to the use of the hardness of water in boiler feed generation, boiler feed water. If you have boiler feed water is a hardness, then these problems will arise. So we are going to discuss this sludge and scale formation. How the sludge and scale will form. What type of sludge it can generated in this boiler feed water. What is the disadvantage of sludge formation? So already the foaming, we can easily avoid this type of priming and foaming, but there is a serious problem is there, especially and sludge and scales and this type of and castic embrittlement and boiler corrosion. These are the main causes in, especially in the boiler feed water if you use the hardness of water, especially in boiler feed. So based on that, we are going to discuss, we have to understand the what is a sludge and how the sludge and scale will form in the boiler. In a boiler, normally water is continuously evaporated and converted into steam. We know that one. As a result, the water becomes saturated due to increase in the concentration of dissolved impurities. What happened? Finally, it reached the ionic products. Thus ionic products will form. This ionic formation, I mean that salts, when exceeds the solubility of the product, it can form the total precipitate on the inner walls of the boiler. We know that inner walls of the that precipitate we are calling, this is the sludge. This is the scale formation. In boiler, there is a sludge and scale formation is happened due to the reason of there is a ion products is there. I mean calcium, magnesium, bicarbonates and sulfates, chlorides. This type of ions can generate the precipitate. Thus precipitate to form the precipitates. It form the scales or sludges on the inner walls of the boiler. The sludge. What is sludge? It is a soft and a loose and slimy precipitate. So that is called as a sludge. In boiler, if you form that sludge, I mean that precipitate is very soft and a loose and a slimy precipitate is there. That precipitate is the sludge precipitate. That sludge precipitate we can easily remove. There is a simple techniques is there. If you forward that completely colder, if you heat that, if a higher temperature, we can easily remove these soft sludges. Normally, these soft sludges have greater solubility in hot water, but in cold water, it have the lesser solubility in nature. That's the reason if higher temperature, I mean higher heat condition, higher hot water condition, so we can remove this type of sludges. Sludges are magnesium bicarbonate, calcium carbonate, magnesium carbonate, magnesium chloride, calcium chloride, magnesium sulfate. These are the main causes to form the sludges. We can easily remove to brushing that boilers. If we use the brushings, we can easily remove this type of sludges in the boiler. There is a disadvantage of is there to sludge formation. What are the disadvantages? Normally, this sludge it can form. So what happened? The conductivity, the heat conductance is reduced. So that's the means of the heat generation, uniform heat generation. It's not possible in the boiler. So that is the main disadvantage of sludge formation. So excessive sludge formation disturb the working of the boiler condition. If your boiler is not properly working, so it's a means of there is a sludge forming is slowly started. So that is the reason. So these are the main disadvantages of sludge formation. Oh, do you understand? So what is the sludge? Sludge is the very soft and loose slimy precipitate. So it is called as a sludge. This sludge we can be easily removed in hot condition. In hot water, so normally the sludges are, the chemical formula may be magnesium carbonate, magnesium chloride, magnesium are some of the carbonates and sulfates are the usually form the sludges. These sludges are very soft nature. So in cold condition, these sludges you cannot remove, it cannot possible to dissolve. In hot condition, it can easily dissolve, and we can easily remove these type of sludges. That is the main drawbacks of sludges. So sludges, it can disturb the boiler condition. It can disturb the working condition of heat generation in the boiler. So that is the main disadvantage of sludge formation. And scales. Scales are hard deposits, the firmly sticking to the inner walls of the boiler. So these are the main scales is a very hard deposits. After soft deposits, after sludge, after number of sludges has happened, so then it can form the sticking on the inner walls of the boiler. So that is called as a hard deposits. That hard precipitates is called as a scales. It's very difficult to remove, even though if we we can use any hard material. If you use any hammer and chisel also, we cannot remove this type of scales. So that scales here are called as a hard deposits. So this hard deposits, we are going to discuss how we can form, how it can form that this type of hard scales. Normally, the decomposition of calcium bicarbonate. Normally, water having bicarbonates, chlorides, sulfates. If we have boiler feed water, this type of hardness, then what happened? The calcium bicarbonate, it generates the calcium carbonate. So due to the reason of heat condition, in the presence of heat, what happened? Calcium bicarbonates, calcium or magnesium bicarbonates to generate, so to create the calcium carbonate and magnesium carbonate. This calcium carbonate and magnesium carbonate is normally forms scales. So after number of times, it can form the scales. These scales are very hard. This hard, after hard formation of the scales on the boiler, this is also to, the condition of boiler, it almost all reduced comparatively sludge formation. So mainly at low pressure of boilers and high pressure of boilers, normally it can form this type of scales. In high pressure boilers, especially if calcium carbonate, after formation of calcium carbonate, this calcium carbonate again interact with water, then converted to calcium hydroxide. Please, any doubts?
No, sir.
Yeah. Okay. This calcium carbonate again is interactive when reacted with the water molecule, then converted to calcium hydroxide. There is some process. Due to this process, the scales will form. So deposition of calcium sulfate. There is another possibility also there. The solubility of calcium sulfate decreases with increase in the temperature. If a higher temperature, what happened? Some of the chemicals, calcium sulfate, magnesium sulfate, iron sulfate, these are chemicals, it cannot soluble in, especially in the water. This calcium, magnesium and iron, aluminum sulfates to also cause the scales in the boiler surface. So it is completely insoluble in especially in hot condition also, and superheated water in superheated condition also, these materials, these suspended particles cannot completely dissolve. So it can cause to the formation of scales, and hard scale formation takes place in the higher pressure boilers. Normally, compared to lower pressure boilers, in higher pressure boilers, normally hard scale formation it takes place. Maybe it can generate possibility is more comparatively lower pressure boilers. The hydrolysis of magnesium salt, these are the formation, how it can form the scales. So first one, the decomposition of calcium carbonate. Normally, the calcium carbonate, bicarbonate, when decomposed, so it can form the calcium carbonate, maybe calcium carbonate, magnesium bicarbonate. These are the bicarbonates to cause the scales. These are the one of the possibility. The second possibility, so calcium sulfate, magnesium sulfate, iron sulfate, aluminum sulfate, this type of sulfates, it cannot soluble in higher temperature. So that's the reason there is a possibility to formation of scales. There is a one type of possibility. Especially this type of hard scales will form higher, high pressure boilers. And hydrolysis of magnesium salts. If a magnesium salt is present and calcium salt is present, magnesium chloride, calcium chloride, this type of salts is present, what happened? It can easily interacted with the water molecule, then converted to magnesium hydroxide and calcium hydroxide. This calcium hydroxide, magnesium hydroxide also to cause the scales. These are the another disadvantage. So scale formation, this is the possibility, hydrolysis of calcium and magnesium salts. So, and presence of silica, this is another type of, if you water having any silica particles, very fine silica particles if you present, the small amount of silica if you present, it also leads to deposit of calcium magnesium silicates. Maybe that silica particles is converted to calcium silicate and magnesium silicate, it can adhere on the firmly to the inner boiler of water. So it is very difficult to remove that type of silica particles. So that's the reason maybe there is a hard scale of hard scales will form on the surface of the boiler. This is the silica. If the presence of silica is present, there is a huge, very hard type hard scales it can form on the surface of the inner boilers. So that is the maybe possibility of the formation of scales. So what is the disadvantage of scale formation? The wastage of fuel. It means, so we need to more temperature to generate the steam. So that's the reason we need the consumption of fuel also, it can enhance it. That means, so the rate of heat transfer is greatly reduced due to the pure conductivity of scales. If scales is formed, so the heat distribution is not forming properly in the boiler, inner boiler and boiler. So that's the reason. So we need to fuel, the consumption is enhanced. So that is the way the wastage of fuel. And lowering of boiler safety to supply the steady heat. So overheating is required, which makes the boiler material weak and soft. So boiler material is goes to reduced to lifespan. So that's the reason. So there is another disadvantage of the safety of boiler also. There is a disadvantage of the scale formation. So due to the, when the boiler material weak and soft, so due to the reason of the distortion of boiler tube and makes the boiler unsafe to bear the high pressure. So that boiler, it cannot work, it cannot possible to work on higher pressure. So that is the disadvantage. And decrease in the efficiency of boiler. We know that the scale it can form, the hot scale it can form on the surface of the inner surface of the boiler. What happened? The deposition of scales in walls and condensers and choke them partially and decrease the efficiency of boiler. Boiler efficiency goes to decrease. and the danger of explosion. Due to uneven expansion, the thick scales to get cracked and results in the formation of large stream and develops the high pressure. It may cause explosion of boiler. If your scales formation is uniform is there, the pressure is not maintained properly. Due to that reason, uneven pressure to cause the explosion of boiler. So these are the disadvantages of scale formation. So how we are going to remove removal of scales? How we are going to remove of scales? So there is a mechanical and chemical methods is also there to removal of scales. So we are going to follow that mechanical and chemical method to remove of scales. And loosely adhering scales are removed with the help of scraper and wire brush. These are the simple techniques to remove of the hard scales. And brittle scales are removed by giving thermal shocks. The brittle scales. So loosely adhering scales are removed by frequent blow down operation, frequently removing precipitates. So these are the another technique to removal of scales. And adherent and hard scales are removed by dissolving them by adding chemicals. This is the one type of method. We are also coagulating process we discussed today. So that type of method we are following. So when we are following that type of chemical precipitate method, we are using that type of method, and especially calcium carbonate scales, we are using 5 to 10% of HCl, and calcium sulfate scales is a present. Calcium carbonate and magnesium, whatever it may be, that type of scales is a present. So we have to use 10% of HCl and 10% of HNO3. And if calcium sulfate scales is a present, we are using some EDTA reagents, this type of complexometric reagents also to remove that type of hard scales. And we are also discussing the castic embrittlement. So this is the one type of cause in the boiler feed. So boiler working. So the formation of brittle and in crystalline cracks in the boiler shell is called as a castic embrittlement. This is called as a castic embrittlement. If a cracks is the present due to the hard scales, after formation of hard scales, the cracks is generated in the boiler, inner the boiler. So what happened? Maybe there is a possibility to cracks, it can be generated. It is also caused to the corrosion of that boiler especially. So due to that reason of this causing the highly alkaline water, maybe if your water having highly alkaline nature, so more than 10 ppm or 9 ppm, maybe to cause this type of problem, castic embrittlement problem. So there is some methods also there. So by using sodium phosphate, so it is a one type of method, prevention method. If you use sodium phosphate, so then we can softening the reagent as a softening reagent. It is a softening reagent. When we are using this external treatment of boiler water, we have to control that this type of problem. And by maintaining the pH, if you maintain the pH of the boiler feed water, especially neutralize the alkalinity, so even though acidity, then we are normally we are avoid this type of problems, castic embrittlement problem. It is a main cause to the corrosion. So the boilers are hot of the in industry, so in work, especially in pharmaceutical laboratories and power generation industry. So we have to control that this type of scale sludge formation. So these are the chemical methods. So we are following that type of chemical method to avoid the to boiler conditioning and working conditioning. So do you have any doubts about this topic? Any doubts?
Yes, sir. I didn't understand anything.
Do you need to once again to
Yes, sir. Can you explain once again?
yeah, please. See, especially in water technology, we are going to discuss how we are going to purify the water. What are the, before going to purify the water, what are the main sources of water? We already discussed what are the sources of water. There is a sources. So surface level sources is there, underground level sources is there. Based on the sources of water, so we are characterize that water. So what type of impurities is present in the water? We are already discussing. Huh? What type of character? Please. Water having, there is a chemical and physical and biological impurities is present. So that means inorganic and organic and biological impurities is present. So biological impurities means if you pathogens is present, I mean microorganisms, algae, fungi, virus, bacteria, these are the biological impurities. What type of methods we are following to remove that type of biological impurities? We are going to discuss in this session, in this topic. Please.
మన క్లాస్ కాదు సార్ వాడు మీరు మొత్తం చెప్తున్నాను స్టార్టింగ్ నుంచి
అవునా it's okay, no problem. Nothing to worry about that. So whatever it may be, based on this method, we are following different type of methods to avoid the condition of water purity, where we have to maintain the water purity. If we not maintain the water purity, already we discussed, so only 3% of water is available for drinking purpose. Only the surface water is at 3%. So remaining 97% of seawater, that water is not useful for drinking purpose because there is a huge salt present, huge salts is present. So only 3%, in that 3%, only 1% is a possibility to drinking. So what type of water we are going to drinking? So which water is drinkable? There is some specifications is there. We are following that specification. Based on that, we are taking that water is a drinking. So there is some methods are there to purification steps is there. So water purification methods are there. So in large scale water purification techniques, that is we are already discussed. So sedimentation, I mean removal of suspended particles and removal of microorganisms is a very, very important topic. What are the steps that is involved in the treatment of water? What I am going to discussing especially for this boiler feed water, in industrial purpose also, we are following, I mean, we are considering this type of water softening techniques. So not for domestic purpose. In industrial purpose also, we have to use some techniques to softening of the water because water have hardness. We are already discussed what is hardness, what type of hardness is present, how we can going to remove that hardness. So this is the boiler feed water treatments are there. So how the sludges are formed, how the scales are formed, what are the steps are involved to the remove of that sludges and the scales. When we are going to understand of this topic, then only we can know that what type of softening techniques we are following. Please. Please open the videos. All are please on the videos and see this. The treatment of boiler feed water. This is the softening techniques. Normally, there are two treatments is that we are following: external treatment and internal treatment method. External treatment and internal treatment method. So external treatment, there is a lime soda method, zeolite process, ion exchange process. These are the external treatment methods. Internal treatment methods, there is if any suitable chemicals we are using to avoid the, to avoid the hardness of water. That method is called as a internal treatment method. For example, Colgan conditioning, phosphate conditioning, colloidal conditioning. These are the internal treatment methods. Internal treatment methods, little bit we are also discussed in water treatment steps. It's not important, especially in our syllabus. But in an external treatment method, there is a very, very important ion exchange process. There is a many external treatment methods is there. That is the ultra purification, ion exchange method. This is the one of the softening technique, and the membrane reverse osmosis method, and the nanofiltration. This is also called as a nanofiltration method, deaeration, degasification, and coagulation, chemical precipitation method. These are the external treatment methods. Do you understand? These are the boiler feed water treatment techniques. Boiler feed water treatment techniques. In your syllabus, we are going to discuss only ion exchange process and reverse osmosis process. Comparatively other topics, these topics are very, very important. For an understanding purpose only, we are going to discuss, we are discussing, so boiler feed water treatment methods. How the boiler feed water we are going to treat it. So, do you understand? Any doubts?
No, sir.
Yes, sir, I have a doubt.
Please, Vinay.
I'm not understanding anything, sir, what you're saying.
It's not our class. It's not our class.
I guess you are saying for yourself, sir. We didn't understand anything, all of the class.
Okay,
Say for
okay. If
yourself.
you want to know that, again, we are going to discussing especially this topic, not to worry about that. So, okay.
Sir, I'll contact you, sir. Can you explain me once?
Yeah. Please.
Thank you, sir. Sir, will do some show, sir.
Okay, Vinay. So, next class we are going to discussing. So, what are the main external treatment techniques? Ion exchange method and the reverse osmosis method we are going to discussing next class. Okay. And Monday evening, so there is some numerical problems are there. I will give to some numerical problems, especially in this water technology numerical problems. So we have to we have to solve that problems in Monday second class. I mean 7th period we have. So in 7th period we are going to discussing that numerical problems, especially in water technology. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sir, attendance is coming.
So attendance. Attendance manually manam collect cheyachu kada. So there is a way to get the attendance. It's not a problem. I can get the attendance from your HOD.
Yes, sir.
Name మీ దగ్గర నుంచి తీసుకుంటాను సార్.
అవునా సరే ఓకే. D1
Present, sir.
D2
Present, sir.
D3
Present, sir.
D4
Present, sir.
D5
Present, sir.
D6
Present, sir.
D8 sorry D7 D7
Later, sir.
D8
Present.
fast amma please. D8 D8 D9
D9 present, sir.
E0
Present, sir.
E1
Present, sir.
E2
Present, sir.
E3
Present, sir.
E4
Present, sir.
E5
Present, sir.
E6
Present, sir.
E7. E7.
Present, sir. E7 present.
E8.
Present, sir.
E9.
Present, sir.
F0.
Present, sir.
F1.
Present, sir.
F2.
Present, sir.
F3.
Present, sir.
F3.
Present, sir.
F4.
Present, sir.
F5.
Present, sir.
F6.
Present, sir.
F6.
Present, sir.
F7. F8.
Present, sir.
F9.
Present, sir.
G0. G1.
Present, sir.
G2.
Present,
G2.
sir.
G3.
Present, sir.
G4.
Present, sir.
G5.
Absent, sir.
G5.
Present, sir.
G6.
Present, sir.
G7.
Present, sir.
G8. G8. G9.
Present, sir.
Very good. H0.
Present, sir.
H1.
Present, sir.
H2.
Present, sir.
H3.
Present, sir.
H4.
Present.
H5.
Present, sir.
H6.
Present, sir.
Absent, sir.
S6 option. H7.
Sir, present. Sir, H6 present.
6 present.
H7.
Present, sir.
H8.
Present, sir.
H9.
Present. Present, sir.
J0.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
D1 present, sir. She kept in chat box.
Okay. J0.
Present, sir.
J1.
Present, sir.
J2. J2.
Present, sir.
J3.
Present, sir.
J4.
Present, sir.
J5.
Present, sir.
J6.
Present, sir.
J7.
Present, sir.
J8.
Present, sir.
J9.
Present, sir.
K0.
Present, sir.
K1.
Present, sir.
K2.
Present, sir.
K3. K3. K4.
Sir, K3 went to bathroom. Present.
K4.
Present, sir.
Okay.
Sir, absent, sir. Sorry.
D7, D8, E7, G8, K2.
D8 absent, sir. D7.
K2 absent.
Is it fine?
D8 present, sir. D7, K2.
Yes, sir.
K2 present, sir.
K2 కూడా present అంట, sir.
Yeah,
B
K2.
present.
Okay. D7, D8, E7, please.
సార్ D8 present, sir. వాడు మైక్ బాగాలేదు.
మీరు వీడియో ఆన్ చేసి చేస్తేనే I can give the attendance. D7, D8, E7, G8, J2. These are the options.
సార్ ఆడ ప్రెసెంట్ సార్ వాడు వీడియో ఆన్ చేసి
They are next stage are
D8
chat analytic. These are copolymers and synthetic. What is this?
Okay, na? It's fine. D7, E7, G8, J2.
J2.
Sir, G8 present.
D8, D8 I gave it.
G, sir, G8.
Oh, good. Surya.
Sir, G8 ఇద్దరు ఉన్నారు సార్.
అదే వీడియో సూర్య వీడియో సార్ G8 రాజు
అదే I know it. Okay. It's fine.
ఓకే సార్.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye, sir. I love you.
Bye.
సార్ మీటింగ్ ఎండ్ చేయకండి.